Alright, this is going to be a commentated run for GDQ, and let's just get started. So, this is Okami New Game Any Percent. This is a very fun run. Okami is an action-adventure game from 2006. It's a Zelda-like, has a lot of those sort of mechanics, but it also has a lot of unique stuff to offer on its own. So the first mechanic that we need to talk about for speedrunning is dash. Amaterasu, the wolf we are playing as, has 3 speeds. She can move at walking speed, which we will see very rarely in this run. By doing a tackle, we can move up to green dash speed. And after running for about 5 seconds or so, we'll move up to gold dash, which is the fastest speed. When we go into cutscenes, you would normally lose our gold dash and have to build it back up again every time. However, by jumping into a cutscene and then jumping out of it as well, we are able to store that speed. So throughout this run, you'll see me jumping into nearly every single cutscene in order to store speed. Out of cutscenes, I'll also be doing this jump dash maneuver where by jumping and then doing an air tackle on the next frame, didn't get it right there, but by doing that, we're able to get up to our max speed in the fastest possible way. So, right here, we just got our first brush power. The main mechanic of this game is that we are not just any old wolf, we are Amaterasu, the sun goddess. So, as the goddess of the sun, we also have the power to draw things into the world. So the first power that we got from that constellation was the power of rejuvenation. And we were able to use that power to restore the river of the heavens and swim across. Brush is honestly a very cool mechanic, and it's there's going to be some cool stuff with it later as well. Right here, we're also now going to get our next brush power pretty soon here. We're going to store the sword of Nagi, of the statue, and we're going to get the power of Power Slash. Power Slash is basically just a slash. It's a sword maneuver. And this maneuver, well, that's rough. This sword maneuver will allow us to cut down things, which is very important. But it will also allow us to do a lot of cool things during fights. Fights are a very important mechanic in this game, and are something that is very interesting for New Game specifically. New Game Plus, as a speedrun, is very different for 2 reasons. The first is it's just New Game Plus. You have all your items from a previous playthrough, as well as just being a bit overpowered for fights. The other difference from New Game Plus, and what makes these 2 categories very interesting, is that in New Game Plus there's an infinite jump glitch. That glitch does not exist for New Game, or rather we don't have access to it in New Game. So instead we're going to have to find some other ways to get over obstacles instead of using an infinite jump. So this is basically the tutorial section of the game that we just finished, and by doing all this, we've now managed to restore Kamiki Village. Kamiki Village is basically the starting place of the game, but we're going to be, our next goal is supposed to be to help Kamiki Village out a little bit more, because even though it's supposed to be restored, the people are still statues, and we need to basically talk to them, and then we're supposed to get the power of sunrise. Which is basically our innate power, since we're the goddess of the sun. However, we're actually not going to do that. We're just going to skedaddle. So, at the moment, there's this huge boulder blocking us from leaving the village. By doing something called Boulder Skip, we can get a frame after dialogue where the game considers us grounded, and by doing a ground tackle, jumping out of that ground tackle, and doing another wall jump, we're able to just make it over the boulder, and thus not have to help out Kamiki Village. So from here, we're just going to head into Shinshu Field. Shinshu Field is, at the moment, also cursed. If we look over, there's all this black, misty stuff, black and red. That's a curse zone, and we basically can't go through it. So instead, we're just going to have to head over here to Hana Valley, which is going to be our first dungeon of the game. So one thing to mention is that we just skipped Sunrise. Sunrise is normally a power that allows us to control the day cycle to some extent. This game has a day and night cycle, and by drawing Sunrise, we would normally be able to turn it to day. We won't have the power to do that during this run, which may have a couple implications, we'll see. The other thing is that Sunrise is also used for cutscenes as well, so that's another thing we'll have to do. Right here we have our first fight, so our strategy for this fight is Power Slash. Power Slash, as you can see, is very powerful. By using Power Slash, we're able to hit every single enemy on the field here all at once, which is a very useful thing. Doing that with our regular weapon is basically not feasible at all. I did use the Divine Retribution. We have a weapon on our back that I used to hit a couple imps there, but for the most part we'll be using our brush powers instead of the weapon that we have in order to do damage. And at the beginning, that's mostly just because there's going to be a lot of multiple enemies in fights, and it's important that we do group damage. But as time goes on, the weapon we have is also just going to get much worse, because we'll be skipping a lot of stuff, and when we skip all that stuff, it's going to we're going to skip getting better weapons that we should get. So now we have another fight here. There's a yellow imp that we have to let dig around first. So we sort of just have to wait for it to pop out of the ground. And then by standing behind the imp when it pops out, it'll be confused. And so 3 hits and a Power Slash lets us take it out. So right here, though, is going to be our first required use of Sunrise. Sunrise is, normally, we need to draw Sunrise right here. And by doing so, the sun will appear in this painting. But by just drawing a circle, the sun appears anyways. Because as it turns out, there's sort of this like pseudo-sunrise power that you have from the beginning. And this pseudo-sunrise power, while it won't allow us to control the day cycle, will allow us to trigger sunrise for any cutscenes that we need it for. So that's very useful that that turns out to be that way. And so even without sunrise, we're going to be able to progress through the story fine. So right here we have this sapling over there that we need to help out in some way. So we're first just going to head over here, and we're going to meet Susano. Susano is sort of the main character of the first arc of the story, and technically he should still be a statue in Kamiki Village, but, you know, maybe they just got over their own problems. I'm sure they're fine. So we're just doing a quick time event here. We need to slash these torches, and then slash Sleepy the Bear, standing on the ball. And if you've played this game before, you know that the balls in this game are rather infamous for having not very great controls. Right here, however, seem to actually have a very good ball. Oh, messed up a little bit. Controlling that ball is very difficult. It takes a lot of practice, honestly. But all the normally required uses of ball, this is the only one of the required uses of ball that we will ever have to do, actually. That doesn't mean we're not going to do any more ball puzzles, but that's the only normally required one we'll do. You'll see. For now, though, we're getting another brush power. This is Bloom, and Bloom lets us bloom things. It's very important for story progression, since by blooming these guardian saplings, we're able to uncurse areas, and by uncursing an area, we are then going to be able to progress through the game. That's basically it. So just very important for game progression. Right here, we're supposed to do another yellow imp fight, but by jumping like that, we are able to get right past it and not have to do it. That's actually our third fight skip of the game as well. We actually did 2 fight skips during the tutorial, where we just ran around the fight. It really is that easy. Doing these fight skips is sometimes going to be very easy. So right here, we're also supposed to do this Campfire Fight again. but by just turning and going around, we don't have to do it. So, rather nice of them to make it that way, but it works out for us. So now we're heading back to Shinshu Field, and in Shinshu Field, we only really have one thing we need to do, which is to bloom this guardian sapling that we weren't able to do before. So at this point, there's now a couple things that the game wants us to do. This is sort of a split path thing where there's two objectives, and it doesn't really matter the order we do them in. So there's two powers we need to get. The first that we're heading towards now is Cherry Bomb. But we're not actually heading towards it. It's way over to our left. Instead, we're having to come over here to actually start another side quest. This is a side quest with Mika. Mika has something he needs from us. There's these named monsters roaming around, and we need to help him take them out. However, these named monsters only appear at night, so we have to... the game turns it to night here for us, just to do a tutorial. Right here, all the imps actually just spawned right on top of each other, which is pretty funny. I don't think I've ever had them all spawn on top of each other in this fight before. But there we go. That's this fight. Once again, Power Slash coming in handy. And by doing this, we're going to cross off the name of this wanted list monster off the list. It was this one right here. And that basically did nothing for us. We're not going to finish this side quest. The reward wouldn't really be helpful for us at all. But what that did do was turn it to night. We don't currently have any way to change it to nighttime. And to get this power, we need it to be night. So by starting that side quest, we're able to turn it to night much faster than we would otherwise. And here we have another fight. This one is with the dead fish, and this is really going to showcase just how brutal Power Slash is. All the enemies down once again. Oh, this one somehow managed to escape 2 Power Slashes. Pretty impressive, really. Get ourselves some money. And right here is Tama. Tama is a bit of a pyrotechnic, and by talking to him, he wants to shoot up some fireworks. So by drawing a bomb here, help him shoot up some fireworks, and this will get us the power of Cherry Bomb. So Cherry Bomb is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a bomb. We now have the power to draw bombs into the world. So on these cracked walls, we can just blow them right up. And these bombs are also going to be helpful in battle, which we'll see later on. Right here I'm also picking up a treasure. Treasure collecting is normally not really required during runs. We normally have enough money to get through the game fine, but at the beginning of this run, we're actually going to be really broke for a lot of it because we're skipping so much stuff that would normally get us money. And because of that, we're going to be picking up a few treasures for a little bit, just to supplement that money later on. So this is not the way towards that second power I mentioned earlier. That second power we're supposed to head towards now is Lily Pad. We're supposed to head back to Kamiki Village, do all this stuff to get it, and it lets us basically just make platforms on water, which will let us get up to this ledge. But as it turns out, there's a little glitch in the game which pops us out of water when 2 walls come together at less than 180 degrees, and so we're able just to pop out of the water and skip Lily Pad. And now we're in Nagata Forest. It also has a cursed area, but luckily its guardian sapling is just right underneath where we start. So we're able just to come right down here, blow up this wall, and bloom the sapling. So after this, we're also going to be doing a couple of very interesting skips. This first one is going to be Waka Skip, and it's what we're about to do is very cool, and one of the coolest glitches in this game. So the game lets you move around the camera when you're in the brush, and as it turns out, we can break the camera free of its normal confines. And by doing this, we can drag the camera wherever we want. So right here, I'm dragging this camera all the way over here. Because way over here, there's this cursed patch. By rebrushing, I'm able to snap inbounds. And then by blooming this curse patch, the game will warp us to it, and that actually lets us skip an entire encounter with Waka, a main character in this game, as well as a fight with him, which is the most important reason to skip that. What we're going to do now is a huge glitch, a huge skip, and it's going to be pretty hard to explain. So this is the start of an optional side quest with Sleepy the Bear, the dude with the ball earlier. I will need to focus up to make sure I don't mess this up, because if I mess it up, there's no retrying it. I need to put this cabbage into this spot right here. I'm going to move over here and start another brush adventure. So right now what we've just done is by slicing that torch will respawn after 10 seconds have passed while the world is moving. So at the moment, what I need to do is do another brush adventure over to another cursed patch, and what I'm going to do is examine a bench, bloom a cursed patch, and trigger a cutscene with Sleepy the Bear all at the same time. Let's hope this works. There we go. There we go. So this is half blue skip, and honestly it doesn't really look like much has happened right now, but there's something very interesting going on. So I'm actually feeding these rabbits because I can't move. My analog stick won't work until after I feed them. I'm also just going to pick up a couple more treasures for money. But there is a reason why we did all this. So our barrier to the next area is blocked off by this raging river. And this river, if you try to just swim across, it sweeps you away. And sadly, there is no consistent way to be able to jump across. However, this river doesn't sweep you away just by being really fast. It does it in a cutscene. And right now, the game can't play some cutscenes. So instead of it sweeping us away, we're able just to swim straight across without any issue. So that's half blue skip. It's definitely it's hard to explain past what I did. There's basically, by having multiple cutscenes play at once, the game is sort of get it in this very odd state where it really doesn't want to play some cutscenes, and it messes everything up. But now we're in Taka Pass, the next area of the game. So the first thing I'm going to do is sell some of that treasure I was picking up. And now I'm going to get 4 meat feed bags, as well as 3 steel fist sake. So the 4 meat feed bags are just for a story thing later. But the steel fist sake is a battle item, and a rather broken one at that. Steel fist sake doubles the power of your weapon. Which, if you've played any game, you know that a 2 times increase to your power is pretty ridiculous. However, it also has another secret effect, where for some reason, it only also affects the power of your cherry bombs. Alcohol-infused explosives, basically. And so, by combining cherry bomb and steel fist sake, what is meant to be essentially a pseudo-boss fight, we're able to take out in 4 cherry bombs. So that was Waka. Very, very powerful weapon that we have here. So steel fist sake combined with cherry bombs is such a potent combination, and it's something we'll be using for a lot of the rest of this run as well. Right now, however, we're just in Taka Pass, and we just have to do a lot of running in order to come over here and bloom another sapling in order to free another area of its curse. This would definitely be a good time for donations during a marathon. Alright, so we're in Taka Pass now, and we have a couple objectives that we need to do. The first objective that we have is to do yet another side quest. Progressing the actual game is not really our goal. We are progressing the game, just in a different way. So this is there's some moles over here, and they're kind of thieves. They're a bit of burglars. And what we have to do is tackle this blue one 3 times in order to get back the golden teacup that was stolen. This golden teacup is very important to someone. This minigame, basically, the way it's supposed to work is that you follow the line of where the blue mole goes, and if he crosses with another mole, he will always switch lines with that mole. However, as you might have seen during that, multiple lines can cross at once, and whenever that happens, the blue mole can go basically anywhere. And so it ends up being really hard to follow where the mole actually goes. But right here we gave the teacup back to the tea master, who in return gave us a golden mushroom. And this golden mushroom will be useful later. We'll see why when we get to it. But for now we're just continuing running around Taka Pass. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that there's a bark button in this game. We can just bark, which is pretty cool. I have barked a couple other times, mostly during fights, which I'll explain when I get to the end of this fight. First we have this Bud Ogre. By blowing it up and doing a couple hits, we can make it reveal its weakness and take it out. And then now we have a better strategy for Yellow Imps, where by inking them and then cherry bombing them, we can take them out immediately afterwards with an attack and a power slash. So right here, I'm barking at the end of this fight, and I've actually been barking at the end of every single fight. And the reason for that is because barking actually has speedrunning use. Barking allows basically every result screen in the game when you bark will clear about a second faster. So that's just something, a pretty funny mechanic that ends up being pretty helpful. So now we're in Sasa Sanctuary. This is Sasa Sanctuary. It's very important to progress through the story, but right now the birds that run this spa won't actually let us in. So we're going to have to get in another way. This trick is called Salsa, or Sasa Early. Nice, first try. Very nice. So right here we just got out of bounds. That's actually a very hard trick. Was not expecting to get it first try. But right here I'm lining up because as it turns out, many games of this era stored the interior to buildings really far below the map. So by doing what's called an interior clip, we can fall down into the interiors of buildings, and thus we bypass the gate that was blocking us. So, super useful stuff. Super useful stuff. That is a very hard trick. I really cannot express how happy I am to get that on the first try. But right here we're in the digging game. This is, these digging games are 2D, and there's a few interesting mechanics. We can use tray bombs to blow up tons of blocks at once, and we can also circle the NPC we're doing this game with, and they'll actually run faster, so we're going to do that a couple times. Since in order to beat this game, you need the NPC to show you where to dig at the bottom of this whole thing. I collected a little bit of money there, just for some extra money to help us get something later. But that's the digging game. That was very fast. The digging games, if you mess up, can be pretty slow, but they're not too difficult. And we finally are getting another power. This is Water Spout, the power to control water. So, right here we're going to be able to put out this burning bird. And we're also going to have the power to raise these pillars of water. Right here, you're just putting some water into this bamboo shoot, and that'll let us open a gate to head to the back of Sasa Sanctuary, where there's something else we need to do. Because right now, we aren't supposed to be here. The game has a very select order of how it wants you to go around this area. We're first supposed to go to Kusa Village, which we will do later. And after going to Kusa Village and starting the dog quest, the game will then let you rescue Chun, who will, after you rescue Chun, they'll let you into Sasa Sanctuary. By getting into Sasa early, though, the game sort of assumes you've already been to Kusa Village, and right here, in front of me, is the Canine Tracker, which is an item I don't have yet, but the game just kind of assumes I do. We'll be getting it in Kusa Village, but for now, we need to fight this dog. So, this is Take. We'll be doing 4 of these dog fights, and they're very tough fights, actually. So, we will be using Steel Fist Sake with Cherry Bombs. And what makes these fights so hard is you have to place these cherry bombs very specifically. Right there, you saw the cherry bomb was really close to Take, but it didn't immediately explode. And that's because the cherry bomb has a really low radius where it'll instantly blow up. And this has a pretty big ramification where, because these dogs like to move around so much, it can be really hard to actually hit them. But it's by far the fastest strategy. Now that fight actually went insanely well. That was a very good fight, so I'm very happy with that. But at this point, we're just going to head on down, and at this point, really luckily, we don't actually have a way out. We can't go back through the gate in any way. But nicely, this mermaid spring is able to let us fast travel out. So mermaid springs are our method of fast travel for this game. There's actually 2 methods of fast travel, but we won't be doing the second one. It's also why I fought that Demon Gate earlier, was in order to let us escape Sasa Sanctuary. Otherwise, we actually would have been entirely stuck and could never get out. So, at this point, we're heading up to Kusa Village. Be another good spot for donations. So, right now Kusa Village is actually under a curse, and this curse is actually pretty rough. While we're in this cursed Kusa, our brush doesn't actually work. If we try, it all just kind of fades away, and Isun tells us, there's a curse, don't do stuff. So, to get rid of this curse, we just have to head all the way to the back of the village, where there's a priestess, Usei, who has been basically struck by demons. We need to just take out these demons. And we have an exorcism slip just for this occasion. But this is also a great time to show, attacking with a regular weapon is just really slow. It's not very powerful, and it's why, under normal circumstances, we would want to use brush powers here, but we can't. So that's part of why brush powers are so important to the speedrun. Right here, we're going to talk to Fusei twice. Now we're going to actually get the Canine Tracker and start the dog quest. So the dog quest is this quest where there's 8 dogs that have basically left from the Canine Warriors, like, area or something. 4 of them, rather nicely, are just around Kusa Village, and we just have to feed them. The other 4 we will have to fight, and are not all in Kusa Village. One of them we already did fight, Take. But this quest is going to be a pretty long quest, and it's going to take up a lot of our time, actually. But we'll be doing a lot of other stuff while doing it as well, of course. That's Mr. Bamboo. We actually already met him, but that's supposed to be when we're introduced to him. Right here we're going to feed Chi. And then right after this, we're actually going to do another brush adventure. So this is going to be Shin Warp. So all these dogs require a brush power to unlock. And the next one, we're supposed to bloom a curse patch in order to find this next dog. But as we know, curse patches warp you. And so by just doing a quick brush adventure up to here, we can bloom this curse patch from up here, which will let us get to the dog, but it will also allow us to save a lot of time by just instantly heading on up. And now we have another really weird thing, where By sequence breaking, we're actually going to be able to save a lot of time in Kusa Village. The fourth dog we can't get to, but the game, because we fought Take, the game already thinks we've fed all 4 dogs in Kusa Village. And it's basically going to let us get the reward for that early. Which is super nice, because that 4th dog, we can't even actually get to right now. It requires a power that we skipped. So, for now, we're just going to head over to Tay here, and this is basically our reward for feeding 4 dogs, is that Tay comes out and wants to pick a fight. So, Tay here is a bit different from other dogs. We're going to do Steel Fist Sake Cherry Bombs again. Tay is sometimes nice and sometimes mean. Here he was nice. You can see he kind of had some like breakdance moves there. He likes to do that sometimes. The other rest of the times, he likes to use attacks that have armor on them, which you can't attack during, and it loses a lot of time. But now we get to do an even funner thing. So all the dogs appear over here, and we're actually able to feed the dog that we couldn't feed before. But by doing this, the game warps us to where this dog was originally supposed to be. And this allows us to, 1, feed this dog, which we do need to do anyway. And at the same time, it also allows us to backtrack through Kusa Village a bit, saving even more time. So just some very convenient, it's very convenient how certain things worked out here. But that's Kusa Village for now. So our next point in the game is a very huge skip. So after we finish this dog quest, we're then going to need to do a dungeon, Gale Shrine, and immediately following that is a super long dungeon, the Moon Cave. And doing all this concludes basically the first arc of the game. But by doing this next skip that we're going to do, we are going to be able to bypass that. So this game, it actually kind of wants to play a trick on you, where during the first arc of this game, it kind of doesn't tell you that there's more of the game after this. It sort of just lets you assume that, oh, I guess that's just the rest of the game. But it does hint that there's more, because it shows you city checkpoints, which you're not supposed to be able to get across right now. There's this huge drawbridge. And there's just this huge river in between, and not really a lot of hope to get to the other side right now. But luckily, there is a way that we can still get to the other side early. And this will allow us to save tons of time. This is basically 25 minutes, I believe, of time save by doing this. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to swim all the way across. We're going to barely not drown. We're going to do another corner jump, immediately followed by a little bit of a glitch that lets us get extra height from wall jumps in certain scenarios. Land up here. Oh. This is a tough skip. Ooh, wow, okay. Wall jump is not being nice to me today. Come up here. And there we go. By just doing that, we can do another wall jump, swing around, and bonk in order to get just enough height to clear and allow us to skip the city. That was city checkpoint skip. So that is one of the biggest skips of the game. I believe the second biggest skip we'll be doing in terms of pure time save. And it's going to let us do some other cool stuff. But for now, we're just going to continue going here. This is Ryoshimakos. This is supposed to be the start of the second arc of the game. And it's still cursed here too. So the first thing we're going to do is actually run through this curse zone. We can go through curse zones for a little bit. We can't use our ink during them or anything. And that meter, if it runs out, will be respawned. But that allows us to skip a fight. And now I'm going to do another quick brush adventure where... Oh, I said I'm do another quick brush adventure. That was weird. Anyway, and that brush adventure basically allows us to skip this whole puzzle where we're meant to carry water through these pools. It also causes walking while talking, so I just open the map and spin around a little bit during that. No use to that walking while talking. But it's pretty funny. And now we're able to bloom Ryoshima. So in Ryoshima, there's something that we really want. One thing that the game holds out on you on for a really long time. There's 3 arcs to this game, and it takes a full third of the game before the game will finally give you double jump. And so, as you might expect, getting double jump as soon as possible is pretty nice. More movement options is pretty much always better. So to get to the dojo where we'll learn this, we want to do a clip here. It's pretty precise. There we go. And by doing that, we're going to do another interior clip where we're going to fall all the way into the dojo. Since to actually go to the dojo, it's on an island that's really annoying to get to, basically. It's pretty far out. Take a little bit to get through. But to just talk to him, fall in, and we can get dojo. Dojo, double jump. Cool. So here, the sensei is telling us about how, now that we have double jump, maybe we can get up to this place that we weren't supposed to be able to get up to before. But as it turns out, 1, we can actually get to that place without double jump. But more importantly, 2, we don't need to go to that place in the first way, at all. For now, we're instead just going to swim over to shore from this island and head over to Seion City. So Seion City is the capital of Nippon, and at the moment it's suffering a plague. And spoilers, we will not actually be helping them out. We just did another fight skip there, skipping a fight with an Ubume. Pretty annoying fight if you do hit at it. But we are coming here for a reason. While we're here, we're going to complete that quest earlier with the moles, where we got the golden mushroom. But there's an issue. To complete that quest, we're actually supposed to first help out Seion and free them from this plague. We can't actually get into the restaurant until after we do that. So to get around that, we're going to jump onto this collision up here. Land. And we're going to do these bonks in order to stay up high. We're going to do something called green hopping. Basically just jumping as soon as you land in order to not lose height, since otherwise you'll slip down. And that allows us to get out of bounds. And from here we can do another interior clip. So even though the restaurant isn't accessible right now, it's actually just, there's a curse zone where the restaurant should be, the restaurant does still exist. And by falling down, we can get to this restaurant early. So why are we doing all this? Well, Fire Burst is a power, and that's what we're getting from this. This is actually a secret technique. An upgrade to a regular brush power. Except the thing is, this brush power that we're getting right now is an upgrade to a power we don't actually have, Inferno. As it turns out, the upgrades to powers are not tied to their original ones, at least in the game's code. And so because of that, we're able to get this power completely fine. So, because of that, we're going to be able to... the normal power we would get is Inferno. And Inferno is the power of fire, similar to Water Spout, but we would need to go to the Moon Cave to get it, which, as I mentioned, City Checkpoint allows us to skip. So by doing that, now we have the power of fire. But we're just going to leave Seion now, because we can do, once again, another skip to progress the game faster. This is a very hard skip, which I need to focus during. This is Toaster, or a way to get into North Ryoshima early. So, here. I'm going to do more sliding ground tackles like I did with City Checkpoint Skip a bit earlier. Alright, there we go. Nice. First try. Very good. So, that is a very difficult skip. Each of those landings, you can lose your speed on, and you won't be able to get off the mountains. And it's actually super important that we get off the mountains, because, as it turns out, the devs of this game, sometimes they don't like speedrunners. And in this case, they put something called a jump barrier on all the mountains of Ryoshima and North Ryoshima, where we are now. These jump barriers basically make it so that your jump button doesn't work as long as you are on the mountains or above them in any way. So in order to do that trick that I did, I not only had to land on the mountains in precise ways to keep my speed, but I had to do tackles that let me get off the mountain, basically, where I did a ground tackle. I then tackled until I was no longer above the mountain, and once I'm no longer above the mountain, I'm able to jump out of ground tackles, even if they're in midair, like I've done a couple times at this point. And by doing this, we're able to just barely get around this jump barrier they put in. So, a super hard trick. Really happy I got that first try. But now that we're in North Rio, we're actually just going to dip. We don't really need anything in here right now. So, so doing that skip, we've managed to progress through the game super fast. We skipped a whole bunch of stuff at this point. But there's some stuff we need to clean up. So right here we're helping Kushi, another resident of Kamiki Village. She's here to help make some sake. And here Susano is protecting her from some demons, so we have to do another quick time event in order to slice all these demons. Now, why are we doing all this? Well, as it turns out, in order to continue the dog quest in this area, we're not able. The dog basically won't appear until after we help out Kushi here. So we're just doing this to be nice and also to progress the story in a way that we care about. So right here, the Canine Tracker's like, whoa, the dog has suddenly appeared. So this is actually a point where something pretty funny has come up. Earlier, we skipped quite a lot when we did Half Blue Skip. And one of the things we skipped was a fishing minigame with Kokari over here. But there's a bit of a funny thing where, as it turns out, Kokari wanted us to help him fish earlier too. So what we're going to do here is these two fishing minigames, both of them required, are sort of layered. When we talked to him in the overworld there, he was talking about how he needed to fish up the Whopper to save Ume. But when we're in this game, he's actually back in the first fishing minigame, the one that we supposedly skipped, in which we're actually going to end up fishing up a salmon. And this has some pretty funny things where, as it turns out, by doing this, we're basically going to get the rewards for both the first fishing minigame and the second one. So the second one will allow us to fight a dog, as well as get another brush power. But the first one will also give us the key to Suda Ruins. So we're going to get both the key and be able to fight Ume by doing this. So very, very neatly, by doing one fishing minigame, we get the rewards for two. So, as I said, we're going to get another brush power. This one is Crescent. This is the power to change it to night, which is pretty funny, because we skipped the power to turn it to day, as the Goddess of the Sun, and yet, as the Goddess of the Sun, we will still be able to turn it to night. So, pretty funny how that works out. But now we have another dog fight. This is Ume. There's a red dog here. Ume's probably the nicest of the dogs. Generally, he will jump at me. Oh, he didn't jump at me. Okay, that's alright. Just going to draw a bomb here. He'll explode, and generally he just kind of sits tight after you blow him up. And you can just kind of blow him up 3 times and it works out. Like so. So, that's Ume. You may notice I have something in my mouth. That's the key to Suda Ruins that I mentioned as well. But as it turns out, I don't actually even need the key to Suda Ruins. Fairly recently, a skip was found that lets us clip through certain things with trees. So we have the ability to make trees, and right here, the key would come along with a 15-second cutscene, but just by jumping with the tree, the game basically pushed me into the loading trigger that's right behind that door. So now that we are in Suda Ruins, I just did another cutscene skip there. And now I'm going the wrong way, because trees, as it turns out, have the ability to clip through walls in very specific scenarios. This is blockhead clip. It is incredibly inconsistent, sadly. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to draw a tree, get behind the tree, and then by bonking in a precise way, I will clip straight through blockhead. Blockhead being this weird thing that's standing here. There we go, like that. And I'm able to activate blockhead from the inside by tackling. And then we can actually play this minigame where I destroy blockhead. And this allows us to skip basically half the dungeon just by doing that one trick. So after doing that, we get a key, which lets us come up here. And this is a lockjaw. We won't have too many of these keys that we have to do. They're pretty funny looking locks though. But now there's something really funny coming up here, which is that we skipped sunrise, but luckily we, for cutscenes at least, we don't really have to worry about it. But as it turns out, we're meant to use rejuvenation here to restore this bridge. But for some reason, the game checks for sunrise when you restore this bridge. So we have to do a skip of restoring this bridge, even though we have rejuvenation, because we skipped another entirely unrelated power. So a pretty funny skip we have to do there. But now we are in this room here. So this is the triple gate room. There's 3 devil gates that we need to defeat. The first thing we're going to use is we're going to use Fire Burst, because as it turns out, there's a neat little thing in the game where the game will instantly open these butt ogres without having to bloom them if you use Fire Burst. So by doing that, we're able to make that fight go by a little bit faster. And now I'm actually going to use Fire Burst again for a seemingly very odd thing. I'm going to do another brush adventure. I'll bring the camera way up here. And now I'm going to draw Fire Burst right here. So that Fire Burst will be useful in a moment, what I just did. As it turns out, after we destroy these gates, the game is going to spawn some pots up there. And those pots, this is some rough spread. Those pots will those pots will need to go and destroy them somehow. And right now they're actually immune to like power slashing and stuff like that, but they aren't immune to Fire Bursts. And as it turns out, by destroying them before they fully exist, we're able to skip an otherwise unskippable cutscene, as well as enter this sort of minor walking while talking state. And by doing all this, the game, we skipped what was like a 20-second long cutscene. So it's a pretty, like a 10-second time save since we still have to do that Fire Burst. But a very cool trick that lets us skip what would otherwise just be us sitting here. So at this point, we just have to restore these curse patches, and this will allow us to get the power of Vine. One funny thing is that there's a little gorgle in the background you might have heard there, and that's actually another cutscene's audio playing during this. That's what I meant when there's this sort of weird walking while talking state where cutscenes are still overlapping. But now that we've done that, we can head on out of Pseudo Ruins, because even though there is still a boss to defeat here, that boss would just let us cross the Yagata River. But we crossed the Yagata River like forever ago at this point, so we're just gonna head out. I jumped right there in order to skip a cutscene in reverse. I skipped the cutscene on the way in, and I also had to skip it on the way out. But the cutscene itself is about 18 seconds long, so very worthwhile to do 2 skips. So at this point in the game, we've sort of entered a bit of a lull where for the next bit we're just going to be needing to finish up the dog quest and go and enter another dungeon. And it'll involve a fair bit of just running around, just some optimal movement. This is also a good point to start talking about a pretty crazy skip. Actually, not yet. Not yet. We'll talk about that in a moment. For now, here's Kushi. This is, we're back in Shinshu Field. Nothing actually important here. But right now we're actually heading all the way back to Kamiki Village, which, when we left, was in a really bad state. It was, all the people were stones, or statues, and it kind of looked pretty bleak for them. But we're going to come back here. Izin's going to tell us that we should explore Shinshu Field, which we're going to say no to. And as it turns out, they're fine. They're actually more than fine. They got rid of the boulder on their own. They've bloomed some trees on their own, as you can see here. They didn't manage to fix their water wheel, but everyone seems to be doing really good. We're going to also need to dig up these turnips here. But basically what's happened is that it turns out Kamiki Village, there's two Kamiki villages. One of them is the one we saw originally. But the other, when we start the dog quest, another one comes in. And that's what we're doing that's where we are right now. This other one basically has assumed... Ooh, that is very rough. I missed the power slash there. Getting hit there actually means I have to dig up all these turnips again. That is rather rough. So we're digging up all these turnips for a reason, I should say. The final dog in the dog quest won't actually fight us unless we prove ourselves by becoming the turnip digging king. And to become the turnip digging king, we have to dig up all 10 turnips in the field. Since Hayabusa's record, this dog here, his record is only 9. So by doing this, we become the king, and he'll finally accept us as worthy opponents. First we have to change it to nighttime, because he doesn't want to fight around his owner. But now we can fight Hayabusa. Hayabusa is actually a slightly different dog fight. As a dog, he's basically the same, but the arena has these grass patches around. And these cherry bombs will actually instantly explode when in grass patches, which can make this fight just a little bit easier. Depending on what Hayabusa does. That was a pretty good fight. And that's Hayabusa. So we finally have completed the dog quest for the most part here. We finally have fed or defeated all 8 dogs. All 8 canine warriors. And at this point we're going to head back to Kusa Village, because the point of this is that in Kusa Village they have a monster hold up. A demon, Crimson Helm. And Crimson Helm has locked up Gale Shrine, and to get in we actually need all 8 power orbs of the canine warriors. So some of them we'll offer them willingly if we feed them. Some of them we gotta beat them up for. We're gonna do another Demon Gate here. We're gonna do our same old strat on the yellow imp here. I'm then actually gonna draw another cherry bomb, because what I want to do here is hopefully, I think that's close enough. Oh, that's rough. Alright, so what I wanted to do here was destroy all the imps with Cherry Bomb. Because the game spawns the next wave of enemies based on when the previous enemy not only dies, but it completely despawns from the arena. And so because of that, it's pretty important that we entirely, by blowing up the imp, they'll disappear faster. But sadly, the imps did not spawn close to each other at all. I don't think I've actually ever had to I've never had it not work out. Now we're warping back to Tonka Pass, and from here we will head on up to Kusa Village. So now is a good point to talk about that trick I was thinking about talking about earlier. That trick is something called New Game Origin Warp. It's not something I'm doing in this run, and it's something that no one has actually done in a run at all. This trick would allow us to not only skip the dog quest, but also some other stuff associated with it. So basically what this trick does is when we enter Gale Shrine, there's going to be this barrier blocking the way, but by with the orbs, we're just going to be able to get rid of the barrier and go on in. However, the barrier does damage. And if we are able to run up and die on the barrier, the game will respawn us, which is not that interesting. What is interesting, however, is that the game doesn't update where it should put you if you don't stand on the ground for 2 frames. So, if you jump frame perfectly every single time you're about to hit the ground, all the way up until the door, and then you die on the door, from the moment you enter the area, which requires, at the moment, I believe, a minimum of 6 frame perfect jumps, without much queue at all. By doing that, the game will never set your respawn point, and instead of being warped back to where you were last standing, you will be warped to 000. 000 in Gale Shrine is basically halfway through the dungeon. So by doing this, we could skip not only part of the dungeon, but tons of the actual quest in order to normally get into the dungeon. We would never have had to go to Kusa earlier, we wouldn't have had to backtrack for Hayabusa, so much stuff. So this is the barrier I was mentioning, but those orbs are able to get rid of it here. And there is the barrier goes. So, at the moment, this trick that I mentioned, a New Game Origin Warp, has not been done in a full game run at all. I believe 3 people, including me, have done the trick at all. But at the moment, it's considered maybe on the edge of viability, where someone could grind for the run, but at the moment, no one really wants to. Back to the actual run here, we have the Chimera here, who will die to 3 cherry bombs. 1 cherry bomb to kill him up, and 2 more to destroy him here. This is actually one point where to mention that cherry bomb does about the same damage as Power Slash in most situations, but cherry bomb is just much more versatile. A lot of the time, the Power Slash will not actually work. The enemy will be immune to it in some way, or it'll have other effects. Like right there where the Chimera turned gray, if we had Power Slash, he would have actually instantly gotten his armor back. But Cherry Bomb basically bypasses nearly every single point where Power Slash is normally not available. So, because of that, even though they do similar amounts of damage, Cherry Bomb ends up being much more useful during most fights. And it's part of why, combined with the fact that it's affected by Steel Fist Sake when Power Slash isn't as well, Cherry Bomb is basically our go-to attack rush power. One other thing to mention about attack rush powers is we have another one, Fire Burst, which I used in that Bud Ogre fight in order to open it up faster. And it also killed the other enemies, but it's not good. Every single upgrade to powers is actually really bad. I'm doing a little trick here where at the end of this fight, I'm drawing a Cherry Bomb, and by drawing a Cherry Bomb here, the game will, during that cutscene where the key spawned, the Cherry Bomb fell, and is able to bring the elevator back up to me. And it just skips having to run, having to fall down just to bring the elevator back up. But yeah, basically those secondary brush powers are just not good. So if I use Fire Burst in most of these fights, it'll take a long time to deal the damage in the first part, which is obviously bad for speedrunning. We're trying to go fast here. But even more than that, those brush power upgrades are, they use up more ink, and so they're slower to use in general. There's this weird thing where they take longer. You're not able to use your brush for like 5 seconds after using one of these. They don't do as much damage, and it's one of those really weird design decisions where these supposed upgrades end up being just entirely inferior in nearly every metric to the basic brush powers you're given at the beginning of the game. So it's a bit of a weird design decision, but here we're getting Galestorm. Back to the run. Right here we are dotting another constellation to save this horse god. And Galestorm is just the power to control the wind. So, by doing this, we've managed to finally free Kusa of its cursed winds that were blowing through, and we've restored the divine winds that used to blow through here. So, now that we've done this, the game wants us to go actually fight Crimson Helm, and actually finish up helping out Kusa Village. But we're not going to do that. We're first going to do a trick here with double jump, where we're able to fall all the way back down to this bridge. It saves about 30 seconds of backtracking through the dungeon. Just a little out of bounds and just falling down. And we're not actually going to go fight Crimson Helm, because that would only allow us to go to the Moon Cave. And we don't need to go to the Moon Cave because we already have Fire Burst. Rather funnily, in English you'd be able to read that the text there says, you can't ignore Crimson Helm forever, you need to come back here. But, of course, we know that we can, in fact, just ignore Crimson Helm. It doesn't really matter. So, at this point, we're reaching the end of our backtracking. We finally have finished up the dog quest and what we needed to do in Gale Shrine. And we're gonna head out of here and back to North Ryoshimakos. The first arc of the game, we of course will not finish, since we don't need to go fight Orochi. And the second arc of the game is our next goal. So, in the second arc of the game, we've actually skipped quite a lot already. By going to North Ryoshimakos, that was on its own. It doesn't skip completely on its own, but it will allow us to skip in some ways about 20 minutes of content. First here, I'm going to buy some exorcism slips. I used one earlier. Oh, I need to sell first. Oops. So these exorcism slips, at this point, our brush powers are starting to get a bit outdated. My god. They're still useful, and they will still be useful for certain fights. But for other fights, they're just not going to be enough, and we're going to need some extra power. And these exorcism slips are basically a free hit on every single enemy in the arena for a certain amount of damage. And basically every single bit of money we're going to get from this point on, nearly all of it is just going to go straight into exorcism slips. And that's going to be basically our power to defeat bosses and stuff for the rest of the game. So, back to North Ryoshimakos we go. In North Ryoshimakos, there's basically two things that the game wants us to do. The first thing is it wants us to activate Orca, which we will do. Actually, there's three things. The first thing is activate Orca, which we're doing right now. Orca is the emissary of the Dragonians, and only comes to those who are worthy. Draw our fake sun in the sky, and Orca will come to us. And now we'll be able to swim around on these waters freely. The second thing the game wants us to do is to go to Catcall Tower, which is that huge tower over there. But we're not going to do that. Catcall Tower is a really long tower. It takes a couple minutes to climb up, and you're literally just jumping all the way up it. And at the same time, its only use is to get the power of Catwalk. Now, Catwalk is useful. Lets us climb up certain heights, but we do have other ways to get height. So, this next way to get height is going to be a demon boost. We actually did something similar to this at the beginning of the game when I skipped Boulder. That was a dialogue boost. But here, I need to try to focus here. What I'm trying to do is, there's a frame when leaving a fight after about a second and a half or so, where when the game switches from being in a fight to back to the overworld, you get a ground tackle, and you can jump out of that tackle, and now we can get up here without Catwalk. Because now we're going to be able to do the third thing. That third thing is going to the Dragon Palace. And to do that we need to help out this Watcher, who wishes to see the galaxy up here in the sky. And by helping out here, we're going to be able to spin this galaxy on Earth. So what we're going to do here is we're going to spin, and that will start to cause the galaxy to spin. And we're going to do a couple more Gale Storms, and by doing this, the galaxy in the sky will spin so powerfully that on Earth a whirlpool is formed. That's right. By spinning wind on Earth, we were able to spin a galaxy in the sky, which in turn opened up a whirlpool. That is very logical. So now we're heading to the Dragon Palace. We're going into this whirlpool, because this whirlpool, as it turns out, is a huge opening down into the Dragon Palace, which is far below the sea. So this is a point to talk about where we're actually going to be doing something where the context doesn't really make sense. So there's this water dragon that's been terrorizing all of Ryoshimakos, all up and down. And you're supposed to have a couple encounters with the water dragon already, but we skipped all of that. But now that we're finally here, after skipping all the normal encounters with the dragon, we're going to need to actually help out. So first we're going to run up here, take the elevator up, and talk to Orohime, the Queen of the Dragonians, who's going to tell us all sorts of plot that we can skip. And we're also going to need an item that will let us enter a certain part of this area. Oh, whoops. And after talking to Orohime here, I'm going to be able to leave. Ethan's going to be like, are you crazy? Because we've just agreed to do something pretty crazy. Because this water dragon, as it turns out, takes up residence in the Dragon Palace. In the Dragon Palace, the water dragon sleeps at night. How nice. And we have just agreed to go inside of the water dragon, because the water dragon is the king of the Dragonians, as it turns out. But for some reason, he's gone into a bit of a rage. He's sort of gone crazy. So at this point, we need to go help him out in some way. The king of the Dragonians was able to turn into a dragon through the dragon orb. And basically, we're going to come in here and take out the dragon orb. Now, this is probably what I think most people expect the inside of a dragon to look like. Some trees, some platforms, a lot of flowing water, all sorts of interesting stuff. Crystals. Very, very normal inside dragon stuff, if I do say so myself. Need to jump over here to get this key. I did that platform movement, actually, specifically to avoid some scrolls that are over there, since we don't have any way to avoid scrolls chasing us in this run. That would be far too slow to get the item that allows you to do that. And we also have the trees, of course, some glowing lanterns. Really just normal dragon stuff. So now that we've done this, we're going to come up here, and here's the actual dragon orb. In New Game Plus, in older versions of the game, there's actually a skip that we can do here, where we're later going to basically be water spouting acid onto that orb. But the game doesn't actually check if what you're water spouting is acid. And by aligning the camera right, you can just water spout water onto the orb and skip what I'm doing right now, where I'm going to release this acid into the world. Here, just have to water spout a couple times. And now the stomach of the dragon, we've released a bunch of stomach acid. Pretty gross, really. And earlier I bought a holy bone. I didn't mention it at the time, but it's actually really weird. We don't normally... holy bones aren't really useful, because we just most of the time don't take damage. But right here, we don't have Lily Pad, the power that would normally allow us to get through here perfectly scot-free. I should have known that was going to happen. That's rough. What? Okay, I've never picked up stuff there before. That was interesting. Alright, so here we're water spouting acid onto this orb. There's some stuff here that's happening to me that I've never dealt with before, but we're fine. So basically all this stuff we would have normally skipped, and we would have been able to instantly skip to this fight right here with the two foxes. And this is what we bought those extra slips for. These two foxes are super annoying to fight. I'm also power slashing them here. By power slashing them, I'm able to get demon fangs, which are something I haven't picked up until now, and I'm not even ever going to use them. The Demon Fangs are entirely incidental. The only reason I actually Power Slash them was similar to what I failed to do earlier, where Power Slashing them will instantly kill them, and allow the next wave of 2 foxes to spawn instantly. So now that we've killed those 2 foxes, we need to leave, because the entire dragon is sort of falling apart, and there's acid raining from the sky. Right here, there's a risky jump that can lose 10 seconds if I get hit while jumping across. Alright, and we're good. Getting hit there, you will always fall all the way into the water, and you have to use a water pillar to get yourself out. It's a pretty rough time loss if that happens. But at this point, we have finally, we've managed to defeat the dragon that we never met until now. King Wada has been saved from terrorizing the oceans. And one thing that was pretty weird is in the dragon was not only the dragon orb, but there was also something else in there. There was the fox rods, which we hadn't heard of until now, but there's a priestess in Seon who really wanted to find them. We skipped meeting her. Her name's Rao, but basically we just gave them to her after we got them. She was very conveniently right there. And we just talked to Otohime again, who has just told us that Himiko is in danger. Himiko is the queen of Seon City, the queen of Nippon, really. She hasn't really been helping out her people from a plague, which is pretty rough. I am not sure exactly what's going on outside. I hope this is not getting picked up on my mic. Someone is using very loud power tools. Sorry if that gets picked up. Anyway, back to the run. Queen Himiko is doing her thing back there. Well, really not doing her thing. She's not helping her people, but that's besides the point. Because at the moment, we don't really care about that. We care about Queen Himiko for some reason, so we're going to go save her. The first thing we're doing is we're just running all the way back. At the moment, this is sort of we're forced into a pretty long story here, where we're basically pinholed into doing a bunch of stuff in a row. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run over here. Now we're back in Ryoshiba. I'm going to not run into the Ubume fight that we skipped earlier. I'm just going to do a few corner cutters as well. We actually can't get into Seon directly right now. The guards are blocking us, so we're going to have to find another way in. But as it turns out, the Rao that we talked to and gave those fox rods to is not the real Rao. The real Rao was actually dead before the story even began. And the Rao we've barely talked to at all in this run is actually kind of evil replacement who took up Rao. So this is the ghost of the real Rao. Because as it turns out, there's this secret entrance into Seon City through the back. She has her secret tunnel. So falling down the well here. Actually, somewhat morbidly, there's a Rao's dead body here. But this is all to set up for... we need to go fight Evil Rao to save Queen Himiko. However, there's something pretty big in the way. So like I mentioned, we kind of skipped a whole bunch of story. And at the end of all that story that we skipped was an item. That item is the Fire Tablet. And the Fire Tablet lets you swim across lava, which is pretty useless most of the time. But as it turns out, Queen Himiko, in her infinite wisdom of course, has a huge sea of lava blocking her, blocking you from getting to her. This huge sea of lava. And in order to get to her, we have to get across there without the Fire Tablet. And it turns out it is just barely possible. It is so close to not being possible, but it is just barely. So the first thing we have to do is go clear this cutscene that's right here. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm doing a setup because I need to jump on the perfect frame here might be it. Ooh, that's rough. So I have to jump frame perfectly, followed immediately by another jump. That's also probably frame perfect. It depends on certain other things, but... Oh, there we go. So that trick is, it's basically 1.5 frames frame perfect. Hard to describe exactly, but the point is, we got across there. It used to be even harder. It used to be quintuple. 5 frame perfect inputs. But for now, we're here to fight Evil Rao. Evil Rao is basically pure RNG. You blow her up, what does she do? Oh, we got good RNG. Every single time you blow her up, she has basically a 50-50 chance to either do this diving attack at you, which afterwards you can just blow her up until she's done, or she'll do an invincible roll, and then you have to wait until she does the roll, and then she's moving again. And then you have to blow her up and hope that she does the diving attack after that. At worst, you can lose almost 20 seconds to bad RNG on that fight. We're gonna need to jump back across the lava, but luckily, it's a bit easier, though I did just mess it up. That's pretty rough. There we go. There's a lot more leniency there, nothing frame perfect about jumping back the other way. Part of the reason why jumping across in the first place is so hard is that there's these, like, curtain things hanging down, and they basically stop you from jumping at your full height. So, before there was more known, in order to jump across there, you have to jump frame perfectly, followed by a frame perfect release of jump, followed by another frame perfect jump, followed by another frame perfect release of jump. Which is a lot. It is a ton of rough stuff. So at this point, to summarize where we are story-wise in this bit of a thing here, we fought Evil Rao, but as it turns out, Himiko died, which is pretty rough. But before she died, she managed to tell us the location of Oni Island. Oni Island is basically this island of monsters that we need to fight. This island is pretty mean, but also it moves around every single day. And so, normally, to get to Oni Island, it's impossible. You can't know where Oni Island will be next. We're just stopping by here to buy some more Exosome Slips. But basically, Queen Himiko managed to tell us where Oni Island would be tonight. So because of that, we're on this... Actually, there's a bit of a cycle. Oni Island will move once the day transitions to night again. And we have basically about 1.5 minutes until that happens. Casually, this is plenty of time to make it all the way there. However, speedrunning-wise, to get there requires the use of Catwalk, which we skipped. Because of this, we're going to have to do another demon boost, the same one actually that we did earlier to get onto Watcher's Cape again. So, to get onto Watcher's Cape, we have to do this, but if we aren't able to get this demon boost in time, we will get reset and it loses about 1 minute after you've already lost time to failing this demon boost. So this is a pretty rough point for Catwalk Skip and in runs. But we got a first try here. That's very nice. So there's actually a fight right here that I'm skipping. I skipped it earlier too. Didn't mention it at the time. And now we are finally going to come over here where, even though we see Oni Island off in the distance, we don't have a way to get there. But rather kindly, Otohime turns herself into the water dragon, as a Dragonian she can do that, and gives us passage all the way to Oni Island. And I must say, this is a really long dragon. This is a very long walk. Like, dude. But now we're heading into Oni Island, which casually is a super long dungeon. But here, we will be doing tons of skips to make it extremely quick. So the first thing we're doing is we're just going to jump to skip having to use that lava, which we can't use without the fire tablet or the power of Inferno. And then we're out of bounds. Now, what did getting out of bounds here do? Well, about halfway through this dungeon, the game puts you back outside for a short moment. And in that moment, it will give you a certain brush power. So what we're going to do is, by getting out here, we're going to hop all the way to the back side of this island in order to skip basically half the dungeon immediately. This is Labyrinth Skip, since it skips basically what is the first trials with a slip called Toby, which you actually need to speedrun against. So right here, we're going to restore the tiger. This is the year of the tiger after all. And this is going to give us the power of Thunderstorm. So Thunderstorm will be used for a couple instances. Just have to get through this tutorial here, and then we're immediately going to do another skip. So rather than going forward through the dungeon, we're going to actually head backwards into this room here. Because they forgot to put a ceiling on, like, just this room. There's a ceiling everywhere else, but right here they forgot to put a ceiling. So here we're going to jump over. We're going to do a little trick to get partially out of bounds. And now we have a really tight jump to make. There we go. And now we're out of bounds. And you jump along here. And then jump on some more out of bounds collision. And that lets us skip, that's about 2 minutes of time save doing that trick. Alright, so now I'm going to go for, this next section is cycle based, and the fastest cycle is pretty hard to make. I have to do a pretty funky trick here, called slope storage, where I get an extra boost that lets me get just enough height to jump up that shaft, where I'm normally, that's supposed to be a bit of a trap where you fall down that shaft. But with just a little bit of extra boost, we're able to climb all the way up. We grab this Thunder Key, fall down, and then by making the fastest cycle, we're just able to make it before this bamboo wheel stops us from going where we did. And there we go. However, the cycles are not over yet. This next section is also cycle-based, though we can't see it right now. And because it's actually cycle-based, I can't make the fastest cycle is pretty slow. So that movement wasn't super optimal, but it doesn't matter because we have to wait for basically this wheel to spin around enough. Once it does spin around enough, though, if we're fast here, we can make all these wheels in basically quick successive order, like so. And that is the 2D section of the game. Of the dungeon, really. So now we're on to the 4th floor of Oni Island, which has, luckily for us, one of the coolest skips in the game. So this is Toby Skip. During the final race with Toby, we've skipped all the other races, but during the final race, which we would otherwise have to do here, he dies. It's pretty sad, but by doing this, we're able to save Toby. So, I'm going to use a vine off screen here, flip through, bonk, use the vine again, and this clips us to the other side of a gate, and we just skipped this entire floor. This alone casually should be about a third of the dungeon or so. It's a very long section, but we're able to skip straight to the end with that trick. That floor actually has many skips in it. It's just ridden with ways to skip stuff. But for now, we're heading to the final part of this dungeon, the boss fight. So, Evil Rao, as it turns out, was Ninetales, the Dark Lord. So, the Dark Lord considers herself a bit of a god, so we have to do actually a constellation to find her. And this fight is basically going to take the form of 2 cycles. We're first going to draw a cherry bomb. He's then going to roar at us, which we can then thunderstorm. He then splits into these spirits. She has 9 spirits total, but we're going to... She only shows 4 at once, so we're able to kill 4 of them here. And then we're going to basically repeat this again. We're going to draw another cherry bomb, fills up, do another thunderstorm. I also want to pick up this money, because we do need money. And that's the second wave. And then luckily, the final spirit, the true Ninetales at the end of it all, luckily is vulnerable from the start, and so we can take her out quickly with some more extra slips. No need to go through any more cherry bomb shenanigans. And that's Ninetales. So that is basically the conclusion of the second arc of the game. So from here, we are going to head on over to the third arc. We're first going to do some movement here to run around these scrolls. These scrolls basically have very specific spots where they'll target you, but if you're outside of that spot, they won't, or they also just can't reach you in time. So just taking some slight movements here to make sure they can't catch me, and we're going to warp back to Shinshu Field. This would be another good time for donations as well. So right now we're heading into the third arc of the game, and this third arc is actually probably the most broken part of the entire game. We'll see as we go through it. For now though, we are going to have to do yet another demon boost, because we have yet another use of Catwalk. So right here, we need to break our way out of this fight again. And for all these demon boosts, there actually isn't really a consistent way of doing them. For all these, I've just been mashing and basically praying I get lucky with the frame. There isn't really a known cue, a consistent way to do them. So I've actually gotten very lucky in this run with getting the first one on the second try and the other two on the first try. But doing all this, we've just opened the Thunder Dome, as I like to call it, since it's the dome that we have to use Thunder to get into. And now we're heading into Kamui, the northern land. Kamui is basically, it's covered in snow, and it's a very interesting region, and it has, in my opinion, one of the best area themes in the game. This game has some great music, but this one is probably my personal favorite. It's so good. It's not playing right now, but it will in a little bit. Our first skip in this area is going to be Okie Skip. So Okie is sort of the protagonist of this area, but what we're going to do is we're going to run over here. We're going to do a brush adventure. We're supposed to meet Okie right now, but by setting up our camera like this, we're going to do what's called a down clip. We did it earlier with Hayabusa Skip. We're going to clip the camera out of bounds, and we're going to move the camera over here, and we're going to drag it this way. So I'm going to drag over here, and now we're supposed to meet Okie, and then after meeting Okie, after we have to fight him, we can finally blow up this rock that's blocking the way and bloom the cherry tree, or the guardian sapling. But by doing a brush adventure, we can actually bloom the tree from below and skip doing all of that. So we're going to do another skip immediately after. This is Igloo Turtle Skip. There's another fight right here. Doing a little bit of movement here to actually get this blossom to activate in a way it's not normally supposed to. There we go. That was a bit weird. I was afraid I was going to hit the fight there. For the New Game Plus run, if you hit the fight, it's actually a soft lock, which is pretty rough. Now, at this merchant here, I am going to buy some Excellent Flips, but I'm also going to buy 3 Inkfinities. So, Inkfinities basically give you infinite ink, and basically during normal playthrough, you get a ton of praise, which is basically a mechanic that gives you... praise is basically something you get whenever you do good things around the world, but we've been skipping a lot of good things. So instead, we have to bypass that. Praise lets you upgrade how much ink you have, how much health you have, but right now we don't even have enough to do any more ink upgrades, and we won't for the rest of the game. So those Inkfinities will allow us in certain circumstances to use much more ink than we could otherwise do. We're also going to jump up here, just a little movement skip. And now we're going to do another skip. We're supposed to meet a bunch of the people of Kamui in order to open this gate. But we can skip opening the gate by jumping over to this ledge here and doing a bunch of tackle jumps up this mountain. The texture doesn't really match the mountain, so you can't actually see me right now, but I promise there's a mountain here that I'm climbing up. There's an invisible wall to my right as well, but once I get high enough, I should be able to just jump right over that wall. Camera's a little crazy here right there. So now I'm fully out of bounds. I'm jumping behind where I just was. And... oop, lost all my speed. Well, okay, we're good. And clip back in bounds. And now we've skipped opening the gate. And now we're heading into Ezofuji. So skipping the gate wouldn't really be very useful, because normally we would now have to... We would come here all just to get an item, which would then let us get into Yoshpet, another area back in Kamui, and that would take us through this huge sequence where we go back in time to fight Orochi 100 years ago, when we didn't even fight him in the present time, and it would just be a big hassle. But luckily there's another skip that we can do up here. Sadly, this is one of the longest runs in the game, at least like the intended. You were just meant to run all the way up this mountain. Really highlights how big it is, I suppose. This is Ezofuji. You can see there's a huge arc in a frozen lake right there. But to do this skip, this is Waku Shrine, and those gates are really saying don't come in, so we're going to go in. First, going to go over here, and we're going to use this vine, drag us up, and then we're going to do a vine jump, where the game doesn't actually take away our ground jump when a vine ends. And by doing that, we can jump over here and enter Waku Shrine from the side. So, this is Waku Shrine. This is another decently long dungeon, but we will once again be skipping most of it. So the first thing with Waku Shrine is there's these cannons. And they shoot you a lot. But luckily, as long as we're moving with green or gold dash, they can't actually hit us. However, there's a bit of an issue. We will need to destroy some of these later. And to destroy them, we need the power to slow down time, but we never got that power. That was part of Fire Tablet Skip and Toaster. We ended up skipping the power to do that. We're going to do another brush adventure right here. We're going to bring the camera all the way around and under this lockjaw. And then by melting this ice, the game will warp us straight past the lockjaw. So, like I mentioned, we don't have the power to slow down time, so hopefully we have a way around that. Do a little jump here, and now we have our final Catwalk Skip, and it is by far the hardest. This is a double frame perfect trick, where while Fireburst is running, the ice, we get frozen on these icicles, which gets instantly melted. And I need to do a frame perfect tackle out of each of these. The first one is a pretty set time, since it's so close to the ground. But the second icicle is very hard to get a tackle out of, since a lot of things can change exactly when you're gonna get frozen. There we go. And there we go. We got up, skipping the last use of Catwalk that we would normally need. That is a very hard skip, so I'm very glad to get that. There's some more cannons right here, but we can once again skip them. We're also supposed to slow down time to use these wheels to get past, but we can just jump straight around them. And now, here is the crazy thing. We're all supposed to slow down time to stop these wheels, but by drawing Fireburst, the game actually slows down time also when we draw Fireburst. So, as a replacement for Veil of Mist, the power to slow down time, we have a dual use of Fireburst. It not only melts things, but it also slows down time. It is so useful that that is a possibility. This is a great Tengu. It dies to 1 Exorcism Slip. I'm going into first-person camera here to draw another Fireburst to melt this lever, because there's a cutscene right in front of me, and where the Fireburst gets drawn is actually based on where your camera is. So, by drawing Fireburst, by going into first person, I was able to draw the Fireburst far enough forward to melt it without actually having to go into the cutscene. There's supposed to be a puzzle to know the position of those wheels, but we just already know the position. And now we're going to get the power of Blizzard. This is meant to be the final power of the game. It is power to basically just draw ice places. And you may also notice we have a new weapon on our back. This is supposed to be the reward for getting all the brush powers in the game, all the main brush powers. But the game actually only just gives it to you after you get Blizzard. So even though we've skipped, I believe, 5 separate powers, the game still gives it to us, which is nice. So now we're going to do another skip, because as it turns out, if we continued through the dungeon, there's a mid-boss of this dungeon, Nechku, and if we fought Nechku, the game would crash. So luckily, we're going to skip fighting Nechku. This is Nechku skip. That is actually a pretty tough skip. I'm very happy to get that. And now we have what is probably one of the hardest things in the speedrun. This is Cannon Room. I need to use Fire Bursts to slow down time with all these cannons firing at me. And at the same time, I need to dodge all these other cannons. You're not normally supposed to be over here with all these other cannons. They shoot 3 quick shots, and it's incredibly difficult to get past them. There's some very specific ways that we move there. Some very specific cycles that we're trying to work around. But luckily, when we enter this fight, the cannons will stop shooting at us, and from here they can't shoot at us after this. So that was a very good cannon room. And now we have the Haunt Gear Room. So the only reason we actually got Blizzard was just to cross that that huge gap to get to the other side with all the cannons. Because in this room where we're meant to use Blizzard, we actually can just jump around, which is much faster than using Blizzard in any way. There's meant to be a puzzle where you push a ball into here to be able to use Blizzard in this room to freeze all the wheels. But luckily, we were able to just jump around. And even if we weren't able to jump around, there's actually a second hidden power that we got, which lets us generate ice anywhere, which would let us skip the puzzle anyway. This is Okie, by the way. He's the protagonist of the third arc of the game, and this is the only time we will be seeing him. We have skipped quite a lot here. So this is the final boss fight of this, not of this game, of this dungeon. That's Lechku and Nechku, and rather unfortunately, they didn't give them any invulnerability to Exism Slips at all. And so we were able to just use 5 Exism Slips and instantly end it. So from here, we still have a bit more of the game left. So at this point, we've basically finished the third arc of the story. And up in the sky, we see the Arc of Yamato. The Arc of Yamato is basically the source of the evil in Nippon. We actually came to Kamui because we saw that after we defeated many of the bosses in this area, had we actually fought more bosses, that they were flying off to the north. So we came to the north to investigate where they had gone. And it turns out that they've come here. This is the Arc of Yamato. This is Marco, Celestial. They're all dead, but don't mind that. That's rough. I forgot to upgrade my wallet earlier. That's okay. We have some backup strats. See here. We're good. We're good. Alright, so this is the Arc of Yamato, and this is basically a boss rush. We're going to need to defeat a bunch of these, basically, we're meant to have already fought all the bosses that we're going to fight here. We're going to start off with Ninetales, who we actually fought not too long ago. Those are Celestials just telling us more about the Arc. So because I forgot to upgrade my wallet, I'm actually going to have to do a couple of backup strategies for the Arc of Yamato. Normally we would have 19 Exism Slips, but because I messed up, we have 9. So what we're going to do here first is we're going to gather up all these, and then we're going to use Thunder to kill all of them in 2 hits, actually. They're pretty weak. Oh, escaped. There we go. A bit slower than just using Extreme Slips, but it's how it is. Cherry Bomb. A little bit annoying that didn't blow up. There we go. Now we're going to need to do that again with this next phase. But this is a bit more risky. There's a certain one we care about here who really is kind of annoying to deal with. Basically, the main spirit that's left has the opportunity to go and take one of them before you actually destroy it. Before you would normally destroy it. So, right here we just defeat the final phase of Ninetales, and that's the first boss fight again. However, the rest of the boss fights for the arc we have not done yet, and will be some unique strategies. There's also these warps that appear after each boss fight to warp you back. And you may have noticed that I didn't stand inside of the warp. And that's because, for some reason, the game actually, if you're standing inside of the warp when it spawns, the game will not warp you directly after the cutscene, and you have to step out of the warp and then step back into it. So, instead we place ourselves basically right up to the edge of the warp, but not quite into it. This next fight is going to be Crimson Helm. It isn't too crazy, to be frank. Crimson Helm was the boss that we ignored earlier, so I suppose we couldn't really ignore Crimson Helm forever. But we did ignore him for a good hour or so. And our strategy here is just going to be Extreme Slip, Hailstorm, Extreme Slip, Extreme Slip, Extreme Slip, Extreme Slip. And there we go, that's Crimson Helm. So, the Arc of Yamato, as I mentioned before, is sort of the source of all evil. And the game sort of has this this big overarching story that you don't really get clued into until the end. At least clued into entirely. But basically, this Arc of Yamato comes from the moon, where the Moon Tribe resides. But basically, they came to Earth, and a whole bunch of monsters hitched a ride. That's the basic gist of it. And they basically took the Ark for their own, and in doing so killed the Celestials that were on it. This next fight is going to be Spider Queen. We need to use 3 vines onto the back of Spider Queen, and the fastest way to do that is just to rotate the camera and just draw vines through certain angles. You actually, if you draw a vine through the middle, that's right. Been a while since I did low wallet strats. Forgot about that. But that's correct. Lining ourselves up with the warp again. But right there, it just shows how versatile the brush is, and how by knowing how to use the brush effectively, casually that fight can actually be pretty difficult to some extent, because you're constantly trying to get behind the Spider Queen or something like that. But if you do it right, you can actually align yourself. You can just rotate the brush in certain ways, and by knowing enough about where the hooks on the back are and stuff like that, there's some very interesting fast strategies you can do. This next fight that we're going to do is by far the longest boss fight, and also probably the most interesting. This is Orochi, who we actually casually should have fought twice by now, but we're going to be fighting the second true Orochi fight. And this fight has 2 phases. So our goal of the first phase is going to be to get... well, Orochi is an 8-headed Hydra snake thing. And our first goal is to get 3 of the heads with 2 things of sake. The like yellow water that's in the pools right now. That's sake. We're basically getting these heads drunk. So we're going to water spout all 3 of them here. And this is actually a complicated strategy where by doing things in a certain way, the game gets tricked, because we shouldn't actually be able to activate 3 heads at once. But by moving the way that we are, we were able to get to the gist of it. Basically, when that earth head is down, the game, there's basically a flag that's supposed to be set that isn't set, that allows all the other heads to attack when they normally shouldn't be able to. So right here, now that we're onto the second phase, our goal is to get these heads somewhat drunk. We're going to water spout. We're going to water spout them and then do a power slash, and we're trying to get 4 of these heads drunk at once. And then after we get 4 of them drunk at once, we're going to do a sorry, I had to focus on the fight for a moment there. We use an Extreme Slip to take them out. Normally we'd use 2 Extreme Slips here, but because we're so low on Extreme Slips, I have to replace the second one with a Power Slash on each of their heads. And there we go. The reason why we do 4 heads at once is because after a certain amount of time, you actually can't water spout them anymore. Or rather, they'll wake up from their stupor. Stupor? Is that the word? I feel like I've only read that word. I've never actually said it out loud. Anyway, this is that's a little thing where basically your momentum when you go into a warp is actually kept. So by jumping in, we actually pop up in the air a little bit. There's another thing that I'll try to remember to show after the Blight fight, which is the final fight we'll be doing here. Blight is actually a bit of an interesting case. So all these other fights, we've had to use a brush power to beat them. And this final fight, we're actually meant to use Veil of Mist. And then, unlike other... we were able to replace Veil of Mist in other places with Fire Burst, but Fire Burst won't work here. It won't slow down Blight. So, in order to defeat Blight, really luckily, he has one attack that we're going to try to manipulate him to do as soon as possible. We're going to walk forward a little bit here, and there we go. Now he's going to do his dash attack, and basically we've skipped an attack in this cycle, where he does basically 3 attacks, and we basically skipped the first one by inching forward there. We're going to power slash these swords, and then we're going to do a attack jump cancel combo, along with some power slashes, and that takes out Blight. We also use Steel Fisake in our weapon there. Because we got an actual late-game weapon, we were able to do damage without any other sources. In that specific case, it turns out that using Cherry Bomb, while it is a feasible method, it still only takes 4 Cherry Bombs. Just doing attacks with our currently much more powerful weapon than we had before is enough to take out Blight. So at this point, the boss rush is not over yet, because we still have final boss. So I did upgrade my wallet after I realized I didn't have enough money, and there was a good reason for that, and that's because we will be buying more Exum Slips. In fact, we will be buying as many as we can, because as it turns out, the final boss is a little. We're gonna kind of cheese the final boss a little bit. Don't tell anyone. So first we're going to run up here. Marco says hi, and then he actually dies. Pretty sad. Like, dies. I don't exactly remember why they're, like, not quite dead yet. That's besides the point. Right now we're fighting Yami, the final boss of the game, who has 5 phases. So in this first phase, the first thing we're going to do is use Exum Slips. We're going to use 5 Exum Slips. And basically the way the Yami fight works is that after Yami takes a certain amount of damage, during most of these phases, he'll give you back a power. So right here we deal a bunch of damage from the start. Use another Exum Slip. So right here we're just slowly getting back all our powers. Like right there, I just got back Power Slash and was able to, now I'm getting back the power of Bloom. And then here I'm just going to Power Slash him again, and that will take me right to the second phase of the fight. The second phase of the fight, I'm going to use one Exum Slip, and I'm actually not going to use any more, since there's basically a bit of a weird bug where during the second phase, if I use more Exum Slips, it'll reset this like bouncing animation. So I want to make sure to use the Exum Slips in a way that don't reset that animation. I'll do that a bit later. I'm also running up and doing some hits, because by doing enough hits, I'm actually going to be able to skip using one Exum Slip. And as well, I just got Godhood, which is a mechanic I haven't really had a reason to talk about right now. Until, like, right now. Basically this mechanic where by attacking enough, basically, you get Godhood, which basically lets you take one free hit. The next time you get hit, you'll lose that Godhood. And basically at the very end of this, it's much easier if I just am able to not bother with having to dodge something and just take a hit. Now, I mentioned most of the time this is supposed to come down to how much damage the boss has taken, how much the phase of Yami has taken. But right here, this is actually a little bit of gambling. And, oh, would you look at that? So by getting all three blues there, we get a power back. There are some other possibilities as well. But, as it turns out, even though this might seem pretty lucky, there is actually zero luck involved in this at all. Because after Yami takes a certain amount of damage, he will always get all three blue. So by just dealing 5 Exum Slips of damage and then Power Slashing immediately, it's enough to just move on. One other interesting thing with this is that I'm not just getting the powers back that I got, I'm also getting the ones I didn't get. So all those powers that I skipped getting, I am actually getting back. With one exception, which is I do not actually get Sunrise back. So I'm going to end up with every single power in the game at the end of this, except for Sunrise. Which is just pretty funny. Right here we're going to use 6 Exum Slips. So one thing here is, we do have to get these powers back. Basically, you can only take Yami down to 1 health before he gives you back all the powers he's supposed to during a phase. So because of that, this whole fight does end up being basically a long auto-scroller, where we're using these. I do want to take this time at the end of this run to give a big thanks to the Okami speedrunning community. It has been so much fun being a part of this community, and being able to do stuff in it, to make friends in it, to help find tricks, to get better at the game. It's just been very fun. So, huge shout outs to the entire Okami speedrunning community. But here we are taking out the 4th phase and moving on to the final phase. So we've gotten all our powers back, and the people of Nippon are all praying for us, thanks to our friend. So as you can see here, we're going to draw Not Real Sun for the final time. And then we're going to use 12 Exum Slips on this final phase. Real bulky final boss here. And it turns out I didn't even need the Godhood. I managed to do it fast enough, where the missiles didn't even hit me. And finally skipping the final cutscenes and the credits, and that is time on this final thing. So we do the speedrunning using in-game time at the end here, and in-game time displays. That's very close to real time. But that is it for this run. Thank you for watching this run. This is one of my favorite games, and I really want to get this into. I really want to be able to show off this game at marathons. This is such a fun game. But that is it for this. So thank you for watching.